Hey guys, Amanda here from Bare Bones Living, and today I come to you with a confession. It seems like every year my garden defeats me, at least momentarily. And what I mean by that is that the garden just gets out of control. And I feel like this year is one of my worst years in letting that happen. And we've had a lot of things happen this summer with our volatile weather and having that tornado and things like that, and then we had tons of rain following the tornado, and that was actually followed by a severe drought and heat wave. And so the combination of a lot of water and then a lot of heat, my plants exploded, which is great. But then that heat wave made it not fun to be outside either. So everything got away from me, and I feel like I've been playing catch up ever since. And that's basically been where I've been. That's the place that I've been at all gardening season this year. So now it's actually decent out right now. It's gonna get a little hotter later today, but I thought I'd bring you guys along with me and give you a glimpse of my big failures and things that are still going good and how I'm gonna salvage some things. So let me show you guys what I'm dealing with here in this garden. Over here, my zucchini plant has produced quite a few zucchini for me, but you can see it's covered in powdery mildew. We got a little bit of okay looking leaves down there. I think I'm going to trim it back and see what else. I'll trim all these powdery mildew ones back and see if anything else grows. The basil. This is my sweet basil here. I've made quite a bit of pesto, and then my Genovese basil here, and I dried that. My beans, you can see, have a lot of pest damage. I've frozen most of my beans. We've had some fresh, but I think I'm gonna pull out all my bean plants, and I think I'm going to try one more round of beans just to see. I mean, we still are warm for another month, so we'll see. My tomatoes are just now coming back from the severe drought and heat. They were really hurting, like you can see right here in the middle. They've kind of died out. But now they're coming back on. Even my Dr. Weitsch's plant, which I thought was totally toast. You can see I have another Dr. Weitsch's right there ripening. So I'm gonna trim it up, and you can see I've got a lot of pinning up to do. A lot of my cherry tomatoes are going wild. Got to pin things up, get it off the ground, try to de-weed. I mean, look at all this grass in here. Bolted lettuce over there. I did do these little basils. I planted basil in between my tomatoes to see if I could get like a later, oh, here's another one here, a later crop of basil. I have not been out trimming them like I did these ones to make them big and bushy. But it looks like I do have some growing, so I'm a little encouraged by that. By pinning up and going through all of this and really seeing what's going on in here, I'm really going to get a better idea of what's really happening in here. This chard looks great. I think what I'm going to do with this is freeze it and then maybe use it in soups and stuff over the winter. I'm not a big lover of the taste of chard, but I know it's good for you, so I'm trying to get used to it and figure out how to use it so that my family will actually eat it. But that's what I am going to do now, and then I'm going to be harvesting. I got a bunch of cherry tomatoes down there. I just harvested a bunch of these Brandywine, this really healthy looking tall guy here. I really enjoyed these Brandywine this year. This is the first year I've really gotten a good crop of them, and I've really liked them. My orange bell pepper is toast, which I knew that was going to be. And I'll just show you what I got once I'm done with this garden.
Mommy.
Are you gonna help me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, helper. And then I've totally neglected this Roma plant here. My triple crop tomato that I had growing in a pot. That's toast as well.
Oh.
But, you know, you have some winners and some losers. Okay, so you can see what I have done with my zucchini plant. It's just one plant rooted right here. And you can see it's got some massive disease there. But I still have this whole shoot over on this side. And it's still got some healthy leaves on it. Maybe not that one, but so I'm just going to give it a little bit more time, see if it shoots off anything else. If not, I'll just pull it out. No big deal. But I pulled out most of my beans. I tacked up my tomatoes. And I know that, you know, it's pretty dense up there, but at this point in the season, I mean, we're in mid-September here. Disease is coming no matter what. Frost is coming no matter what. We just have a few weeks left of these plants. So, I mean, they're going to catch disease being that close together. They already have disease. We're just, you know, kind of extending their life as much as possible. I'm leaving this Swiss chard for now because I don't exactly know what to do. I don't know if I have to blanch this Swiss chard first, so I just decided to leave it. Cleaned out all the beans down here. I trimmed up the basils that are here, see if they'll bush out anymore. I have these ground cherries that have basically been just overtaken by everything else that was here. But we've gotten a couple of ground cherries. They're sweet. They're a little tart. These are I think these are the Aunt Molly's ground cherries. I can't really remember. My Brad's Atomic Grape tomato was right here. I actually pulled it out because the whole plant was dried up and diseased. So I got a little gap here, which gave me some room for the rest of my cherry and grape tomatoes. And basically what I did for my cherry and grape tomatoes is I let them go crazy. I didn't really try to wrangle them or pin them up. I didn't trim them like I did my slicers. You can see they're much more narrowed down like this. This is my Amish paste tomato here. You can see it's just like one big stem that I let come off into two. That's what I did for all of my slicing tomatoes. This is my purple Russian tomato, same difference. I just, you know, had like 2 liters, 3 liters here. Tried to keep it really narrowed down so I could get larger fruit. Focused on that, but that wasn't the mission here with the grape tomatoes or the cherry tomatoes. I just let them bush and go crazy and didn't trim them down. And they have done absolutely phenomenal. I've gotten so many grape tomatoes. And that's all for like this side of the bed. I haven't planted anything. I just wanted to clear it up and kind of get a wrangle on what was going on. I still have this mess here, which is my tomatillos, that the bees are just absolutely loving right now. And my peppers. I think I'm still going to come back with these tomatillos. I just need to go get a new basket. And this is what I've gotten just in my cherry tomatoes and the basil that I trimmed. This pepper was a casualty of watering. Knocked it off, but whatever. A big full colander worth of more cherry tomatoes, which I'm very blessed to have. I'll probably freeze them for later sauces and salsas. And I'll go get a new basket for my tomatillos. So much like everything else that I show you guys, I'm doing for the first time myself. So this year is not the first time me growing tomatillos. I think I shared before that I have tried growing them in the past. However, I only had one plant successfully survive, and tomatillos need at least a pair in order to pollinate each other. So this is my first successful year actually growing tomatillo plants and harvesting tomatillos. So I didn't know how these were really going to do. I had one tomatillo plant last year in about, I think, the same location, and because it didn't grow any fruit, it just grew a plant and it didn't have any weight to it, so I didn't know how to actually properly support this plant either. So as you can see, it's fallen over and not well supported. So this is kind of one of those plants that I've just kind of let go and do whatever it's going to do, and I'll just get what I can get. These are purple tomatillos, and I've gotten quite a few, but I'm not super familiar in how to tell if they're ripe. This is a purple tomatillo variety, and I thought it was like a ground cherry where you wait until it falls off the plant before you pick it, but apparently that is not what you're supposed to do, I guess. But that has been how I have been collecting my tomatillos this year, because I just haven't had the time or the knowledge, really, to do this properly. The purpling of the tomatillos is just like that of like a Brad's Atomic grape or something like that. It's anthocyanins in the actual fruit that when they're exposed to the sun, they turn purple. It's not necessarily a sign of ripeness. So you can see some of them have like this purple blushing, but mostly they're still green. And as you can see, my pollinator garden is looking pretty sad these days. There's a lonely ground cherry over here that was hidden under gobs of weeds. My two pepper plants, my giant Marconis, and my Tomatillos are back there. I'm going to pull those out and actually put those up front where I cleared out a bunch of space so they'll have more sun and I have more access to water them, because as you can tell they're very dried out. All my chamomile has pretty much died for the season, but that'll come back. The borage is still jamming, even though it's fallen over. It's gotten heavy. There's tons of weeds in here. Tons of weeds. Don't judge. My swamp milkweed is here and back there. I never did get any monarchs this year. Kind of sad about that. My echinacea is done for the year. My calendula still blossoms a little bit, but I haven't really been harvesting it or anything like that. Back there is my bronze fennel, which also fell over. The bee balm, as you can tell, is blooming and doing great. There's another ground cherry here. Lemon balm's doing great. And my comfrey is doing great. And there's, I think, still a couple more ground cherries in there. So it's looking pretty overgrown with weeds and a little messy, but still jamming, still have lots of pollinators, and hopefully I can get in here and do a little bit of maintenance to make it look a little bit better for next year. You guys, check out what I just found. A praying mantis in my garden. Yeah. Now this is probably one of those Chinese praying mantises or something like that that are not actually, that are invasive. But I was thinking about getting praying mantises. I was gonna buy some to have them hatch in my garden because they're great for gardens. They eat all the bad bugs for me. And these Chinese ones or Japanese ones or whatever they are, these are much bigger than the South Carolina native mantis, and they would actually eat the South Carolina praying mantis. But since I didn't buy any of those this year, I'm happy to see this guy in there. That's pretty cool. He was just flying and walking, and of course now that I have the camera on him, he's gonna be shy. But hey, little dude, thanks for all your help. Thanks for everything you do in here. And as you can tell, you know, the pollinator garden is buzzing, as always. Butterflies and bees and praying mantis. So cool. I wonder if he thinks he moves slowly. We can't see him. Very cool. There he goes. Thanks, dude. And probably my biggest failure of this season has been my poor green stalk. It was doing great, and then the heat set in and all my lettuces died, and then the drought, and now all my peppers and my basil have died. I can still harvest these cayenne peppers and dry them out. My strawberries will be fine and come back next year. So I need to really harvest these peppers, pull these all out except for my strawberries. And you know, like I said, we're mid-September and I should have already started my lettuce. I'm going to be planting a bunch more lettuce and chards and things like that back in here, and get rolling on my fall crops. That's also one of my downfalls of this gardening season. And fall really is one of my favorite times to garden because it's not so dang hot, and I am a lover of fall. So hopefully I'll be making a video on a happier green stalk coming up here soon. So back here in this back garden, you can see that it is time for me to take down these cucumbers. They are quite done, disease dried out. These tomatoes, I tried growing tomatoes in some places that I have never tried growing tomatoes in before, and it has been fairly successful, but again, what hasn't been successful has been my fault. I've been very neglectful of these, and yet still they have produced well for me. Over here is where all my onions were, and as you can see, they're not there anymore. I pulled them probably a month ago or something like that and let them start to cure in my basement. I did not make a video about that, and I've used probably half of them now, and I'm just letting this area rest, and this is where I'm going to be placing my new garlic for next year. I'm gonna amend this soil, and I'll put my garlic cloves in here. I grew them here last year, or this, last October. I planted them over here, and I harvested those in June. So I'll put them here this year. And then I planted these Romas here, and I mean, look at this mess, you guys. Like, there are, I think, 6 Roma plants in here. Not that you can tell, because I was so neglectful on this back garden and as a gardener in general this year. And it's a mess, but I mean, it still has produced wonders for me. I've also put like 3 or 4 cherry tomatoes along the back there that I kind of tagged up. But, I mean, as far as watering and maintenance and things like that, I haven't done that this year. Or at least with these plants. And for the most part, they're still healthy and they're still producing. And there's still a ton of fruit on these plants. And still time in my growing season to get something out of these. So, I mean, I really think that it's important as gardeners to really give ourselves some grace in gardening and in general. Was I the best gardener, most attentive gardener this year? Absolutely not. Did I produce a ton of food? I sure did, even in my haste. But I mean, these plants really want to live, and they want to produce, and they'll do it on their own for the most part. They would have done it better had I been more attentive, but I mean, gardening really isn't hard. It takes a lot of attention and maintenance and things like that, but even when you're not the strongest yourself, Mother Nature will take over for you. These plants are still strong, they're still thriving, and I'm still gonna get a ton of produce from them. And I'm gonna be able to make things for my family and have nutritious food. So I'm giving myself a little bit of grace, acknowledging my failures for this year, and trying to learn from them, trying to, figure out how I can do this better next year. Because every year is different, and every year you learn something new. Also, I've been making a ton of preserving videos as the year has gone on, and as I've been playing catch up from my lack of gardening. And I just haven't been editing the videos and putting them out. So you'll see those also rolling out soon, hopefully. But I will be preserving basically everything that I have been harvesting today for future recipes and uses. And I'll be putting out those other videos as well, so you'll kind of get this back and forth of timing videos. So again, my bad, but that might be a little bit confusing, but it just wasn't in the cards for me this year, I guess. Thank you guys for stopping by today and joining in on our journey here at Bare Bones Living. We'll catch you on the next one.